Hello friends, have another process video here for you, and today we're going to look at another type of book that requires some special attention. That is the square bound book. So those books that have these sort of square bindings, or DC and Marvel had a number of these um, types of books. DC does them as well. The prestige format, where they're a little bit thicker. Sometimes they have staples. Sometimes they don't, but they do comprise of usually glue to help keep the binding together. So these require a little bit of extra love when it comes to pressing. There's a lot that can go wrong with these. So first, I'm just going to do a normal process where I do a detailing, a cleaning, and then when I'm done with that, I'll talk a little bit about what I do to press these. Right? So obviously, with this square binding, you can't press it like a normal book. You don't want to crush that square binding, and there are some other problems that arise as well that we'll talk about. But this is Marvel Superheroes number 12. It's the first appearance of Captain Marvel. I got this fairly recently. And it is in a little bit of rough shape, but it's the kind of rough shape that I like. The kind of rough shape that I can do something about. There's a lot of black smudges and whatnot on the cover, and there's quite a bit of waviness or wrinkling without a lot of color breaks. So gonna see what can be done for this book. So we'll start off with a normal, nice and easy surface cleaning. I can feel a lot of ridges right here, so we'll see. So as I mentioned before, the main problem with pressing these books with that spine is you don't want to crush the spine. You see a lot of these square bound books where the top might be okay, but the bottom is crushed, which I believe is from storage. You put books in a box, there's more pressure on the bottom than there is in the top, and they kind of get crushed. This is a fairly nice, a fairly square spine. It's a little crushed at the very, very bottom, but overall, it's pretty nice as far as the squareness of the binding goes. But a lot of waviness here. So you don't want to crush that. The other thing you have to worry about is because there is glue in the binding. It's not just a staple. Again, sometimes with the Marvel books, you'll see staples in there, and those you have to. When that's the case, there's even more to kind of worry about and look out for. But the main problem is the glue, because at high heats, what happens to glue? What happens to dried glue at high heats? Well, it becomes undried glue. The glue can melt and completely ruin the binding. So there's two things so there's three things when it comes to, let me state this a different way. There are three things that come into play when pressing books. Three important ingredients: heat, pressure, and time. With this kind of square binding, it limits you on two of the key ingredients. Heat, because you don't want to go too hot because the glue will melt, and pressure, because again you don't want to crush the binding. When you're dealing with a normal book that is just folded over and stapled, mostly what you're doing is you're just pressing that fold even further, which there's no real risk to that within reason. But with the square binding, you can't put as much pressure on it, without causing damage. So what do you do? What do you do indeed? Because without that pressure, you can't, if you take out any one of those ingredients, or weaken any one of those ingredients too much, you're not going to get results. So I need to be able to put pressure on the book in order to press things out without crushing the spine. I'm curious how some of this stuff cleans up. This is not too bad. It's actually not that great either. Some of this might be straight up ink that's not going to come out. Well, it's doing okay. So how can we go ahead and put enough pressure on it to be effective, but not crush it? Well, stay tuned. I will go over my trick for what I do for our square bound friends. And the same trick will work for books like this. The Marvel square bounds will also work for prestige format, DC prestige format books. The other thing that is of concern with these, particularly with some Marvel books, is not only is there glue, but there can be staples in there. But I don't think this has staples. I'm not really feeling staples. I know, for example, my Silver Surfer 3 that I did recently. What is that? Man, this, I can't see here. It's really strange, but this sort of splash here is coming through like as texture. This was not stored well. And when there are staples in these kinds of books, they'd be kind of right here and here. They're not on the binding itself, but they're into the page a little bit, which can cause some problems. But that can be handled, similar to how when we looked at that modern book that had that Thanos 13 that I had, where I just used some boards to kind of surround the staples, but that can't always be done with this kind of problem. Luckily, it looks like this doesn't have any staples in it, so it's one less thing that kind of have to worry about when I come to pressing this. Which is good, because the square binding and the glue is problem enough to have to worry about for sure. I will also say that it definitely takes these square bound books, when it comes to pressing, they take patience. They often require multiple passes through the pressing procedure. Because it needs exposure to heat in order to help work the stuff out, but you can't put the heat too high such that it would melt the glue. So you might have to do multiple rounds of lower heat. Is what I've personally found. So if you are doing pressing and you are trying to do some of these square bound books, or one of these square bound books, and you press it, and it comes out, looks like it's not very good. A lot of the wrinkles and whatnot are still in there, don't get too discouraged. It might just take a few more rounds. Tweak it a little bit. Tweak the pressure. Maybe try to increase the heat a little, but do it bit by bit. But you do have to be. You have to be patient. You have to be patient with these particular books. Yeah, this is actually cleaning up fairly nice. I got a pretty good deal on this, given the condition that it was. Just from someone in town, someone who does. They don't own a store. They just kind of do some selling on the side, some buying and selling on the side for themselves. So I was able to buy it from someone locally, which I always like to do. But you know, it's in rough shape, but it's in one of those shapes that there's a lot that can be done about it. You know, that ink is the black from the other side is really coming through, especially on that white and yellow. That's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Very light over that. More pressure on that color there. But the gentleman that I got this, and I got a number of other things from him as well. Some books that I've been looking for a while. You might see some in the future. Some of them might get sent in for grading at some point. Showcase 73, I think it's 73. The first appearance of the Creeper. One of those books I've been looking for a long time, and I could never. Every time I found one, it was in absolute garbage condition. But this one was really nice. But anyway, buying local, always like to do that, especially someone who's just, it's kind of like me, doesn't have like a formal sort of, well, I mean, formal or not, my business is formal, but it isn't. It's just something to do on the side, mostly for kind of for fun. But yeah, he and a couple people have a website, like a comic blog type thing. It's called The Long Boxers. Might be worth checking out. I think it's just kind of people thinking, or it's just a passion for them. They enjoy comics and writing articles and doing sort of some of what I do with my videos. There's one person that goes over like, hey, it's Wednesday, let's check it out, kind of like I do with TGIW and just various stuff. But it's always, I think it's always important to help promote content creators, no matter what their form. They don't do any videos. It's all written word articles. But it is still comic content for people who have a passion for the hobby in different ways. And that's what's kind of great about the hobby, is there's so many ways that fans can show their love for it. There's those that just pick up books and like to read stuff, and that's great. That's what it was originally made for, is just to pick up and read. But then there's collectors who are passionate about old stuff and increasing their collection of key issues or runs, like myself, or try to make more out of it with content and a small business like I do as well. There's so many aspects to it, and I'll say that, and there's a lot, especially when you get into larger amounts of collecting, kind of like what I do when I have so many long boxes and key issues and things like that, where if you don't like organization, if you don't like the aspect of organization, organizing things and making order out of chaos, you're going to have a bad time. Luckily I do, but the organization aspect of comic collecting is something that I love almost as much as comic collecting itself and comic reading. I don't know. I don't know why it's weird to be that excited about, uh, you know, organizing something. It's just a way to spend more time with the thing that you love, and make it more beautiful, by having it be organized and make sense. Part of that, a recent video I had where I made the put those shelves together and cleaned that room up and was able to, um, make a little more sense out of my organization. Like that was it was I mean it was a chore. It was just hard, but it was something that I hated doing. I loved every minute of it, because I knew what the end result was going to be, and it was going to be worth it, and it was going to make my life in the future easier, um, as far as accessing stuff and cataloging stuff goes. Um, but I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, the fact that this hobby has so many aspects to it that people can grab onto, or they can leave behind. Um, all the movies and TV shows and all of that stuff for people that don't even like comics themselves. They're getting the benefit of the success, and those of us who love the medium, not just the stories but the medium itself of comic books. Um, that's nothing against those that, no shade thrown towards those that just like the movies and don't care to ever pick up a comic book in their life. I feel that they're robbing themselves. They're missing out. Um, I've always kind of felt that about people who have sort of these, look down on a type of medium because of, I don't know, it's seen as childlike or infantile or whatever you want. But there's great stories there. They're missing great stories just because they have some sort of hang up or something like that. But that's fine. I'm just glad that they have something they enjoy. Those that just like the movies or TV shows or whatever. It gives me something to talk about with people that I might not have anything to talk about otherwise. But yeah, I don't hold it against them. I don't look down upon those that, oh, I only like the TV shows. I'm not going to read a comic book. I'm glad that you get entertainment out of the part of thing that I'm passionate about. And again, it gives me something to connect with people on. As you can tell, when I do this and ramble, it's completely unscripted. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. At some point, I'll probably just shut up because I won't have anything else to say. This is cleaning up nicely. And if you only care about seeing, the end of like how do I deal with these square spines? I mean, by all means, just jump to the end and check that out. This is, no matter what I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be, cleaning this book up. Might as well record it, and I'm not going to sit here and be completely silent, so I'll just ramble about stuff. And if it's stuff that you care about, want to listen to, then by all means, listen away. If not, then no harm, no foul. This is, wow. God dang! I really wish, I really wish the camera could pick up on what I'm actually seeing of how well this is cleaning up. You might be able to tell better on the back. The back is quite a bit dirtier. I have found that when I do take pictures with my camera, my phone camera, it does a better job of showing the dirty details of the befores. So I'll definitely post those as well. But the video camera doesn't really do that. What about the spine here? So what I will do sometimes, and you're not going to see it on camera because I'm left-handed. Well, I'll show you what I'm doing. Is kind of run the eraser along the edge, because I mean this is a lot of white here, and it can be cleaned up a little bit. But again, I don't want to put too much crazy pressure. With just a light sort of pass over that, because it's a very sensitive area. But hey, every little bit helps. All right, so the back, you can probably see. Yeah, you can see it's. See if I can get even better focus here. Not really, but you can see it's pretty messy. It's not the prettiest. So I'm real curious to see how well this cleans up. There are staples in here. There are staples in here. Yeah, right here and right here. They're towards the back. Ugh. Great. Submariner fun. I do love the Submariner. I wish you could sustain a book. Ooh. That's some racist stuff right there. It's a reprint of Men's Adventures number 28, July of 1954. They did not draw the Chinese people very kindly at that time. All right. Not that they did in the 60s either. All right, so let's see what you can do about the back here. Man, if this can clean up, God, I'll be so excited. This back's going to take a while, though. This is a lot. The staples are pretty. I don't know how to say. They're very embedded in where they are. It looks like they've already kind of torn through some pages. I think this was stored under a lot of pressure for a long time. Telling from what the staples have done to the surrounding pages, or the adjacent pages, I should say, and the fact that on the interior printing of the front cover is coming through so much on the exterior of the front cover, like a lot. I mean, you probably don't see it very well on camera, but it's very apparent. So I think this was stored under too much pressure. Something you have to worry about. You have to look out for. I mean, when you're storing books, even if they're bagged and boarded and whatnot, leave some breathing room for them. The books can. Well, first of all, just too much pressure in general over a long period of time. You know, a lot of pressure for a little bit of time when you're doing pressing is fine, but when it's done for an extensive period of time, years and years, it causes damage, and that and books pressing into each other. The staples of one book can press into another book and cause problems. This comes back to that organization and storage, having to worry about it, be excited about it, right? Okay. This is not bad. This is not bad. There is some fading. The paper itself is yellowed. Careful around the edges here. So there's not anything I can really do about that. His gunk is cleaning up very well. Luckily, there's no like real frays or anything on the edges, because the edge themselves, the edge itself, and you can't see it really well, really needs to be cleaned up. And when there's fraying on the edges, it's you have to be very careful, because your eraser could grab something and pull it. Obviously, you don't want to do that. This really needs some love around. Gotta be extra careful, even without the phrase. You know, if you are going like this with the eraser, it's hard to do sometimes, especially when you're used to going a little bit quicker. Is if you kind of have to make sure that you pull and lift up and go down, and pull and lift up and go down, so you don't pull and lift up high enough and catch the edge there as you're going back up this way. Takes a little it takes a little training. When you're normally erasing something, you don't even lift up, right? You just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But here you can't do that on the edge. Because like I said, I don't want to catch it. But it takes, you got to be mindful of it, especially since, you know, for all your life you're used to just erasing back and forth, back and forth. Okay, that's all right. Put this aside for now. Go down. With these books that have a lot of white, I like to frame it first. That is, I go around the edges and then do the interior. It's just, the edges are kind of the biggest pain, so I kind of get that out of the way. They're you have to worry about the edge, the sides and whatnot. Here, I'm kind of worried about these staples, and I don't want to put too much pressure. The staples poke through, obviously that would be bad. But at the same time, this really needs it. You know, doing this, if you're thinking about getting into doing this, you know, by all means, go ahead. I make these videos partially so people that are interested can maybe learn a little bit. But it takes time. It takes patience. You can have some. You can read all you want on it. You can watch videos on people telling you what to do. You can take all the kind of advice in the world, but just like anything else, you know, until you start getting your hands dirty and figure out your own little techniques and the ways that you do things on your own. It's a whole nother thing. But it is, in my opinion, it is worth it. It's a very satisfying thing to do, to take something that is in need of work and fixing it. I'm not, as you may guess, I'm not like a mechanically inclined person. Working on cars and stuff is something that has never been sort of for me. But I assume it's the same kind of thing that people that are into that sort of thing part of why they enjoy it. They've taken something that's broken and they fixed it. You know, that's it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. Making something better, in your own way, making the world a better place. Maybe not in any way that significantly matters, but I've taken something that could be improved and made it more beautiful. The world is a little bit better place, at least for the owner of the book, whether it be myself or a customer. It's good. It's good to have. It's good to have a skill, a trade. I think like a physical trade. You know, by day I am a software developer. I suppose that's a trade. But something that's a little more tactile, that you can feel and see is I think is good to have. Maybe you're a. You know, I've tried a couple of things with varying degrees of success. I did some furniture refinishing for a while, and I really enjoyed that. The problem with refinishing furniture, even furniture is big. in case you don't know, furniture takes up a lot of space. So I've done a few things, some cedar chests and things like that, but that I found, you know, that were in really, really bad shape, and refinished them and made them better. Didn't do it for, you know, business or anything. I just kind of did it like, hey, I found this thing, I really like it, and I could make it better, so I did. They can only do that so many times before, like, well, I have all the furniture I need, so now what? You know, so space is an issue. Not that space isn't an issue with comic books, obviously, but not as much as, you know, 2, 3, 4, however many, depending how big your space is, pieces of furniture are like well, that's it. I never did it to like find something and flip it to sell it or whatever like that. Selling, that's like, I don't know, wasn't something I was interested in. You know, trying to, without having a store, you know, trying to sell things seems like that would be, I'd just be sitting on piles of refinished furniture for too long, and just it didn't sound like fun. Again, I've lost myself in my own rambling. But yeah, what was I saying? Having a trade, having a tactile, a physical trade. You know, it could be you like to draw, or paint, or knit, or some other kind of type of art, or woodwork, or whatever. I think it's good for everyone to have something like that. Like, I mean, it can be very relaxing. And what is this crap? and rewarding. I have no idea what that is. I guess you get to live because I can't get you off. All right. You go away. So now the interior. Ooh, this is where it gets. There's so much. There's so much here. It's cleaning up. It's cleaning up better than I thought it was going to. So that's good, right? Now, how detailed do you get, right? How detailed do you get? Do you go through, take something like super fine like this and go through every single line? It just kind of depends. I usually do the big areas first and then kind of go from there. I was like, yeah, the big areas were really where the problem was, and once that's cleaned up, it looks really good. And then go back and do detailing where it needs it with the smaller stuff. But going through, and sometimes, let's see, sometimes we'll try it. You can get away with kind of lightly going over like this. Just depends how good the ink is. Sometimes it starts to fade the ink. Seems to be all right. That seemed to be okay. Still want to give it the detailed area. So what is this? Does that come off? Not really. Oh, it does. So there are this one. Oh boy, yeah, this is going to be. I don't know what these lines are in here, but in between here, but they are coming out, which means I do want to address them. There's lines in here that are so fine. There's no way you're going to see them on camera. But just in between letters and oof. What is it? It's the other side of this. Here's what I think happened. And this being it was stored under a lot of pressure. It was under so much pressure, which makes me wonder, like, how the spine is so square. But the thickness of the ink on the inside pressed through, and whatever was against it, I'm guessing this wasn't bagged, imprinted its ink on here, which is why you can see the interior inking on the outside. Bizarre. That is bizarre. Yeah, because it's coming off. It's coming off. Which is good, but it's just weird. must have run out of things to talk about because I've shut up. It's amazing. It's amazing. I actually shut up when I start talking about not talking. So what is here's something that you can throw in the comments. Let me know. What is your favorite square-bound book? What is your favorite square-bound book? Whether it be Marvel or DC, prestige format, your Dark Knight Returns, a couple of the issues of the Long Halloween, Killing Joke was prestige format. A lot of good DC stuff, and then a lot of good Marvel stuff too. This here, Silver Surfer was in this format. The original Silver Surfer series. There's a lot of good stuff. All right, I think that's about as good as we're gonna get it, and it is a lot better than what it was. A lot better than what it was. Is it perfect? No, absolutely not. But it's a lot better than what it was. So now it's time for a press. All right, so what do we need to do in order to press this? Let me put my space up here a little bit. So, press is going to come down on this. Obviously, it is a lot thicker than a normal book. Let's see, you have one hanging around here. All right, here's that. Like obviously, so here's your normal Copper Age, modern Copper Age sort of book. So much thicker. What else we have? Here's something a little more Bronze Age, still thicker than that. So when you have something like this, and you're pressing on it, you're increasing that intended fold. But I don't want to press this to the same degree because then it will crush it all the way down. But at the same time, so it means less pressure, right? Less pressure. So I said three things: pressure, time, and heat. Heat I talked about because of the glue, have to lessen. Means you might have to take a few passes. Pressure, can't put as much. So if you can't put as much pressure on it, and the space, here I can put a lot of pressure on it. So whatever imperfections are on the cover can get pressed out. Again, I can press it pretty much as hard as I want, and it will be fine. I have to lessen the pressure so I don't squash this, but then there's not as much pressure on the book itself, right? So what I do is, so I can get some amount of pressure, more pressure than I would just by pressing like this, is I support the spine. While it's in the press. And how I do that is, so I had some Golden Age boards that I cut into strips. It's not even here, but I just cut the two outside strips because I wanted to make sure that they were perfectly flat. So those are those are flush, right? So it's if this was a golden board, cut there, cut there. And then do it golden so they're longer. So I get some nice flush strips. And when it's in the press, I put these up against the spine, and there's a number of them. I don't tape them together or anything like that because I want them to basically be modular, right? So some of this square bound stuff could be taller than others, so I don't have one set thickness that I use, so they're not bound anyway. That I put up against the spine like that, right? So I can put more pressure on there because this will stop the press from pressing down the spine too much. And you do want some pressure to be able to put the wrinkles and stuff out. So I usually have, you can see, like, you can kind of see some of the writing there. So it is peeking out just a little bit, but to be safe, knowing that I'm probably going to have to make multiple passes anyway, I'll put it so it's flush, or close to flush, press it, and then I'll kind of get a gauge. How did it go? Well, this needs a lot more. It needs to be pressed again. I definitely didn't get enough pressure, so I can just, I'll take one out. I'll take one out, and then do it again, and I have a little bit. So this will be pressed down a little bit, but it's not going to press it all the way flat. And this will come back a little bit, especially when it has the structure of this straight edge up against it. It will be okay as long as you're careful with it. I mean, you just don't give too much pressure. If you give too much pressure, it'll still crush this too much. But it allows you to put more pressure on it than it would just by having it like this. If you have it just in like this, any amount of pressure that is not going to crush the spine is not going to press anything out. You'll be able to lay the heat sheet on top of it, maybe put a little bit of pressure on it, but not enough to take out anything significant. And this book needs some significant pressing. So that's kind of what I do. As far as the staple in the back, again, depending upon where the staple is in the state of it, I put a, so I'll put a board back here for sure. Maybe because the other issue here is with the way that this is glue bound, you don't get all the way up to the edge. So you can see here there's space. I can't push this back any further, right, without like really pushing it and ripping something. There's some space here. So when this gets pressed, there's a risk of it pressing a crease right there. So this one's going to be tough. I'm gonna have to do this. This is going to take a few times because I'm going to start with pretty light pressure. To avoid some of that staple issue. That's troublesome. But I think we'll be okay. So that's it. So I'll get this pressed, and like I said, it'll probably take some time. This might take a few days, depending how many times I have to put it through the process. But I'll be back and we'll see how it went. All right, thanks. All right, so we have the Marvel Superheroes 12 out of the press, and I have to say, all said and done, I am extremely happy with how this came out. It does not look like the same book at all. Combination of the cleaning and detailing, especially, this was dirty, but now the whites are really white. The yellows pop, front and back. All looks really good. Was able to press out some of the imperfections. Again, with the square bound stuff, can never get as much pressure as you can with not square bound stuff, but using the technique that I talked about, you can get more pressure than you think. So aside from where there's color breaks, Some on the spine here, which were obviously there before, and one there. Nothing that I can do about that without doing color touch-up, which I don't do, because that counts as restoration. You would not think this is the same book at all. So really, really happy. I think I increased the grade on this from probably a very good fine, so like a I don't know, maybe up very good fine, maybe up to a fine plus. I think with the work that I did, I probably if the my grading, my value source is accurate, about doubled the value of it. Just cleaned up really, really well. Really happy with it. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the technique that I talked about. If you try it out, please let me know how it goes. Or if there's something else that you do, another way that you handle this sort of issue, this sort of problem. So give me a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and we will catch you next time. Thanks. This video was brought to you by Titan Comic Pressing. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Titan Comic Pressing LLC.